Hi, this is a remake of an old video in a hopefully more succinct, structured, and easy to digest manner. Recorded using a real microphone this time for audio.
Big dog, big nut.
This video, part 2, is about general advice for guitar. Part 1 was about motivation. In another video, I might also discuss genetics and biomechanics for healthy guitar playing.
Winner.
Number 1. There are no secrets to getting better. There is only practice. The only differences between a good guitarist and a sloppy guitarist are good and bad practice habits, multiplied by time investment. When someone makes relatively fast progress, is it because he is talented or is it because he has good practice habits? I believe certain genetic qualities help and that there is an argument to be made that some people are more creative mentally and musically, but the raw mechanical act of playing guitar is based only on practice. Anyone can get good at guitar, but there is no single exercise that will magically make you succeed. It is a concentrated web of effort across multiple aspects that eventually come together to form what we call good technique. The more intelligent and refined our practice process is, the better we can become at a faster pace. Some people develop these good practice habits intuitively or otherwise, and that is why they succeed, not because of a nebulous idea of talent. They just practice better. Number 2. There is a lot of things you can do on guitar. Guthrie Govan, Guitar Jesus himself, says even he is still learning. But this leads to an interesting point. Some people believe everything you learn will benefit you musically. I understand and agree with this point to an extent, and while it is nice to be a versatile musician, we should be smart with our time and energy. There are things I have learned that I use almost every time I play guitar, and there are other things that you could argue were a waste of time. Part of a refined practice process is making sure you are consistently working on the fundamentals of your style, the important pieces you will use almost every time you play guitar. Number 3. 15 minutes of practice a day is not enough. Teachers will tell people to practice at least 15 minutes a day, but that is a low bar of effort for children with no diligence or work ethic or goals. It is for people who are never going to get good. Consistency and routine is important, but you need to practice more than 15 minutes a day. For reference, I used to practice on average between 4 to 6 hours a day. That wasn't wasted time sitting in front of a TV, that was dedicated practice. My warm-up alone was 45 minutes long, and then I would start the rest of my practice schedule. These days, I play guitar on average about 2 to 3 hours, 6 days a week. I have one rest day where I don't touch the guitar at all. This rest day is important because it allows the information you've been working on to settle in your brain and your muscles. It gives you time to digest it. It also helps prevent burnout, keeps you refreshed and inspired to continue playing guitar. Number 4. Continuing the topic of rest. I read a study a long time ago. The study was conducted at a violinist conservatory, separating the students into 2 groups. Group A would study and practice a violin across one long session every day. To keep things simple, let's say Group A studies for 4 hours a day. Group B studied in multiple sessions, taking breaks or resting. So Group B would study for 3 hours a day, taking a break after every hour. In the study, it was observed that Group B made more progress than Group A, even though Group B spent overall less time studying. Rest is important. It is a tactic for smart people. So in conclusion, be smart people. Number 5. Continuing the topic of being smart. Practice with a metronome. There is no reason not to, unless you want to suck. Why would you not practice with a metronome, unless you want it to suck? You should practice sometimes without a metronome so you can play with a fluid, natural feel without relying on a metronome beat. But the majority of your practice should be done with a metronome, so you do not suck. Number 6. Do not practice mindlessly. Don't take a scale exercise and practice without considering what you are practicing. How can you train your skill if you are not aware of what skill it is you are training and how it is being trained? The more you understand why you are doing something and the more attention you pay to the nuances, the more you can gain from your practice sessions. Focusing on core problem areas with specific dedicated exercises is much more beneficial to your technique overall, rather than learning random songs or random scale exercises and hoping your technique somehow magically comes together. It is also important to practice things in a variety of ways and angles. For example, if you are working on memorizing your scale patterns, if you always start your scale patterns on the lowest string, you will find it difficult to remember the scale patterns in the moment whenever you need to start from any other string or from any other angle. Take your exercises and play them in a variety of ways all over the fretboard so that your perception of movement in theory becomes more deep and flexible. Number 7. Victor Wooten is one of the best and most well-respected bassists in the world. He has also written a book that I think is dumb. But in this book, he brings up a concept that I enjoy. He believes it is good for people to sometimes practice and play their instrument mindlessly while watching TV. His point is to help ingrain the instrument into your natural being. For example, we do things like breathe air without needing to be aware of the act. In fact, if we do become aware, suddenly this thing that we used to do subconsciously now takes effort, focus, and active energy. Victor Wooten is advocating mindlessness, not to be a simpleton, but to be a natural in your element. We have countless examples of mental blocks. The mind is a powerful thing and can get in its own way of progress and excellence. People can excel in the practice room, but shut down mentally when it comes to the real thing. Victor Wooten is advocating to be like a child, unburdened by overanalysis. Sometimes thinking too much just makes things harder. Particularly when it comes to complex and fast passages, he's right. When you are playing really fast, you will not have the time to think about what you are doing. The ideal is for one to play their instrument the way one breathes air. Number 8. Competition. Someone made a comment on my video on motivation saying that one of the best things that can help you is to know someone in real life who is better than you to motivate you to continue practicing. I agree, I understand this point, but I don't really like it because I personally advocate for internal stability. When your internal world is sorted, you will not need to find energy, joy, and validation from external sources. External energy is finite, but internal peace is a well you can draw upon freely. Number 9. Practice should be fun. The brain is wired to remember both fun and negative experiences more strongly. You should structure your practice with things you need, but also practice them in ways you find enjoyable. Let's take 2 different children and have them learn the same skill, math. The 2 children are the exact same, except one of them enjoys math. Naturally, we can expect the child who enjoys math to excel at it. The child that enjoys what he's doing will put in more effort, more time, and he will do so with more intent focus, with a greater desire to succeed. The child that hates what he's doing will either do the bare minimum or not do it at all. Number 10. It's not always going to be fun. This point ties into my first video on motivation, but simply put, getting good requires lots of effort over a long period of time. It will not always be fun and engaging 100% of the time. There's no way around it. You have to get your shit together if you really want to get good. It is work. It's important to have a conversation with yourself sometimes. Is the time and money investment worth the effort? Do I truly enjoy the journey, or do I just like the end results? Maybe you like playing a finished song sometimes, but you just do not like to practice. I am not going to deeply discuss the mentality of a pathetic, weak, whiny, lazy quitter. I will simply say, if guitar isn't fun or meaningful enough to you to stick with it long term, perhaps it is better to cut your losses earlier and find something else that makes you happy. Number 11. Luke LeMay of the band Gorguts has an interesting anecdote that I enjoy. When he went to school to learn music theory composition, the instructor told all of the students to spend their time focused on learning the material as best they can throughout their time in school, and once they are done with their studies and once they are done with their books, forget everything. The idea is that whatever remains in your memory and whatever you naturally use is the stuff that is truly relevant to your needs. Number 12. Bro, what the fuck? Aside from the insane playing, how do you even memorize this many notes? And how is your penis so large? I think of it like learning a long dialogue from a movie to do impressions, for example. You learn a few words, you connect them until you finish the sentence. You practice the sentence until you have the same cadence and accents as the movie and the same body language. Then, you drill it until you consistently recite the sentence off memory. Then you add the next sentences, and then you add the whole paragraph. You're not really thinking about each individual word after a certain point. You have entire sentences and paragraphs chunked together as bigger blocks of information. You aren't memorizing 10,000 words, you're memorizing 10 sentences, which is much easier to wrap your head around. Over time, the blocks you are able to work with become denser, larger, and longer. Chunking information is the act of breaking down larger chunks of information into understandable pieces before you then begin to connect everything together when you're ready. Number 13. There was a study done regarding memory and how we internalize information. The study separated two groups of students. Group A spent their semester taking notes by hand with pencil and paper, while Group B took all of their notes using laptops with a keyboard. It was observed that Group A did noticeably better on their test scores. Now, alongside other research data, it was concluded that the brain associates and produces memory in multiple ways using multiple sensations. By taking notes by hand, Group A enhanced the memory of the material with the sense of touch. Or, for other examples, smell can bring to mind memories from the past that you associate with that smell. To use an example more directly related to guitar, let's say you're trying to memorize a long, complex piece of music. Physically notating the tablature or the sheet music down onto a piece of paper can help enhance your memory of that material. Maybe instead of trying to memorize material by playing it a million times, you can try to find alternate ways of building memories with that material. Understanding how our brain and our memory works is important. It can help us refine our practice process, which leads to my next point. Number 14. Earlier, I had discussed the violin conservatory where a group of students was told to take breaks throughout their study sessions. We know resting is important, but having multiple practice sessions also affects our memories in a different way. Our brain has different categories for our memories. When you practice guitar once a day, you are training your brain to associate guitar and all guitar-related information as information you only need to recall once a day. If you practice guitar multiple times a day, your brain is now being trained to associate guitar with information that needs to be recalled multiple times a day, making your brain understand that it needs to bring this information up to mind quicker. The information you use only once a day will be remembered slowly, while the information you use a lot will be remembered much more quickly. The people who never think about birthdays never remember them. The people who do remember birthdays are the ones who make an effort to think about them. We can apply these principles to the way we structure our practice with great benefits. Number 15. Practice fast to get your mind and your muscles used to the idea of playing fast. How can you achieve speed if your mind does not understand how fast it needs to be? You need to shock the nervous system. If you always practice at slow BPMs, that is what your mind and your muscles become used to. You need to introduce faster BPMs into your practice so your mind understands that it needs to start recalling information quicker, and your nervous system understands that it needs to start moving quicker. When you play faster than you can handle, you will become sloppy, but your body becomes used to operating at a faster level. You can always slow down afterwards to clean up your technique. It is a push and pull process. Number 16. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. When I do metronome work, I start slow, work my way up to a BPM that is challenging, then I go a little higher to show my body how high the ceiling can go. Then I slow the BPM down and start over again at a higher point than when I started. So, for example, let's say I have a riff that needs to be played at 100 BPM. I will start practicing it at 70 BPM, a speed that is slow enough for me to comfortably play while focusing on nuances and tightness. Depending on how hard the riff is, I will speed up the BPM in either 1, 3, or 5 BPM increments. When you start speeding things up by 1 BPM, it tricks your brain. You are going faster, but the BPM increase is so minuscule it is almost imperceptible to the mind. This, of course, is a meticulous process, but it does work. So, the riff I have needs to be played at 100 BPM, and I started at 70 BPM. I'll practice until I'm comfortable, and then I will start to speed up by 1, 3, or 5 point increments until I get to, let's say, 90 BPM, okay? So now at 90 BPM, I am starting to make too many mistakes. It's too fast for my mind to keep up with consistently, and it's too fast for my hand to play cleanly, okay? I will then, for a short time, between 10 and 30 seconds, attempt to practice the riff at 95 BPM to overload my senses, and then I will slow it back down. So now we are starting the second cycle of metronome practice for this riff. The first cycle we started at 70 BPM. For the second cycle, now that I've slowed it back down, we are going to start at 75 BPM. This way, we are establishing a higher foundation than what we started with, okay? So we are always making small steps forward. We are slowly training our body to operate at faster levels. And that's the whole process. We'll keep doing this whole cycle over and over again until we get to our desired BPM, either across one session, or maybe across multiple days, or across multiple weeks, whatever. Sometimes, when I'm feeling lazy and impatient, I will do big BPM jumps, like 10 or 20 points. But the process remains the same. This is how I practice everything when I do metronome work. Number 17. Practice palm muted to build micro muscles. When you palm mute, you are engaging more of the muscles and tendons in your picking hand, wrist, and forearms. So, I recommend you take whatever exercises you can and practice them entirely palm muted to build up those micro muscles. Number 18. We're going to apply that same logic to our fret hand. Instead of palm muting, we are going to use our fretting hand to practice our exercises entirely legato, so we're only going to use hammer-ons and pull-offs. One of my favorite exercises is to take sweep arpeggio shapes and play them entirely legato, using hammer-ons and pull-offs, and maybe some slides. I find that when I do these kinds of exercises, my left hand, my fretting hand, becomes much more strong and commanding over the fretboard. We need to understand that the fretting hand has a much more complicated job than the picking hand. The picking hand is nuanced, but it typically just goes up and down. So, if we isolate the fretting hand with these legato exercises, we can really begin to build the IQ, the command, and the coordination necessary for good technique. Number 19. Relax. You need to conserve your energy, particularly for complex and demanding songs. You need to practice playing with a soft touch. Pick an exercise and slowly, without a metronome, play it over and over again with a focus on using the smallest amount of finger pressure possible to play it cleanly. I would spend about 15 or 30 minutes doing this kind of exercise every other practice session. At first, it will be a very conscious process, but over time, you will find that you will naturally start playing guitar with a much lighter touch. When we see someone look awkward as they play guitar, it's probably because they are very tense. When someone looks natural on guitar, it's probably because they know how to relax and conserve their energies, using the least amount of finger pressure they need to accomplish their goals. Remember, slow is smooth and smooth is relaxed. Relaxed is efficient. Efficient is fast. Number 20. You get what you give. If you treat things like a joke, you will achieve results that are nothing but a joke. When I was younger, I thought about killing myself a lot. I felt that there was not much reason to bother with the effort of living, and I very much do not like people. I did not have morals, goals, religion, spirituality, or a support network of people and mentors to help me sort myself out. I had guitar, and this hobby that I started as a whim when I was a child became very serious. If I did not have guitar, I believe I would have killed myself, and it is this severe intent that is behind my every effort. I care about guitar a lot, probably more than other people. You get what you give. The severity of intent behind your actions shapes the depth and the meaning of the results you may or may not achieve. Greatness is seldom cultivated by those who do not care. The mask of nonchalance and apathy is simply a slow death of progress.